think you are working for success. You think the long hours, the late nights, the endless sacrifices are all about building a better life. But look closer. Beneath the surface, what you are really chasing is not money, not freedom, not even comfort. What you are chasing is the look in someone else's eyes. It is the recognition, the subtle nod of respect, the silent admission that you matter, that you stand above the rest, that you are not invisible. You can feel it in the small moments, when your colleague gets the promotion and suddenly everyone listens to him more closely. When your friend posts the highlight reel of his life online and the likes pour in while your own posts sit ignored. When family members whisper about who made it and who did not. Each time a quiet panic rises, you wonder if you are falling behind. And so you push harder. You dress for the image, not the function. You take on projects not because they excite you, but because they look impressive on a resume. You buy things you do not need, just to signal you belong to a certain tier. You tell yourself it is about survival, but deep down you know it is about something else. Status. The word itself feels uncomfortable. It sounds shallow, like something only insecure people care about. But if you are honest, you care. Almost everyone does, because status is not just a luxury of the vain, it is a survival tool. From the earliest tribes to the modern office, the man without status was the man without protection, and that instinct never left you. Here is the part no one likes to admit. Even those who seem to have everything, money, fame, influence, are haunted by the fear of losing status. The athlete who cannot accept retirement, the CEO who cannot step down, the actor who keeps chasing the spotlight even after the applause fades. They look powerful on the outside, but inside they are terrified of becoming irrelevant. And this raises a question that cuts deeper than any paycheck, any trophy, any title. If status is supposed to make you feel secure, then why does it leave even the most successful people anxious and restless? Why is it that the higher you climb, the more fragile you feel? Aristotle saw the answer more than 2,000 years ago. From the moment you were old enough to understand words, the promise of status was whispered into your ears. Teachers praised the students who collected the highest grades. Coaches celebrated the players who won the most trophies. Parents spoke proudly about the child who brought home medals, certificates, titles. At every step, the lesson was the same. Recognition means worth. Society built an entire machine to reinforce this. In school, the signals come as grades and awards. In the workplace, they arrive as job titles, corner offices, and promotions. Online, they flash as follower counts, blue check marks, and viral posts. In families, they appear as subtle hierarchies: who earns more, who provides more, who is admired the most at gatherings. The pattern is so consistent that you stop questioning it. You begin to believe that status is not just a symbol of success, but the very substance of it. You tell yourself, once I reach that level, then I will feel secure. Once I hold that title, then I will finally be free. And in the beginning, it works. The first time your name is called out in public praise, a spark ignites. The first time your work draws admiration, you feel stronger, more alive. That moment of recognition feels like proof that you belong. But here is the hidden cost. The recognition does not last. The applause fades. The title loses its shine. The likes slow down. And what once felt like validation begins to feel like hunger. You crave the next signal, the next promotion, the next sign that others still see you as valuable. The machine keeps feeding you a bigger degree, a louder award, a flashier car, a higher rank. You keep climbing because you cannot bear the thought of being overlooked. Aristotle understood this trap. He wrote, "Honor is what we give to virtue, but it is not virtue itself. Status is a shadow, not the substance. It can never stand on its own. It must always be borrowed from others. And the moment your worth depends on what others grant you, your freedom is gone." If status is not enough, then what is? For most of your life, you were taught to believe that success meant accumulating signals, degrees, promotions, wealth, admiration. But Aristotle would tell you, this belief is built on a dangerous confusion. 2,000 years ago, he asked a simple question: what is the ultimate goal of human life? Men chase many things: pleasure, wealth, recognition. But Aristotle noticed that none of these stand on their own. They are pursued for the sake of something else. Money is sought because of what it can buy. Pleasure is sought because of the feeling it creates. Honor is sought because it confirms value in the eyes of others. But what about the goal that is not for the sake of anything else? The goal that stands on its own? Aristotle called this eudaimonia, a state often translated as happiness, but closer to flourishing, to living in alignment with the highest part of your nature. Here is the trap. Status is not eudaimonia. It is what Aristotle called an external good. Useful, yes. Necessary at times, perhaps, but never sufficient, because it depends on others. It is granted, not created, and what is granted can always be taken away. Think about it. You work for years to be recognized, but in one scandal, one downturn, one shift in public opinion, it all disappears. The applause moves to someone else. The spotlight turns cold. And you are left asking the question no one dares to ask out loud. If recognition was the goal, then what am I without it? Aristotle's answer is blunt. If your life is built on external goods alone, you are building on sand. True flourishing must come from activities that express the virtues of the soul. Courage, wisdom, discipline, justice. These are internal, not borrowed. They are cultivated, not handed out. They cannot be stripped away by the vote of a crowd or the opinion of a boss. Status, he argued, is not meaningless. It can be a reflection of virtue, a shadow that follows real excellence. But it can never be the substance itself. To mistake the shadow for the body is to guarantee disappointment. You think you are free because you are chasing recognition, but freedom built on the judgment of others is no freedom at all. It is dependence dressed as success, and this is the uncomfortable truth. The more you anchor your life to status, the less control you have over it. The higher you climb, the more fragile you become. Because your worth is no longer yours. It hangs on the lips of the crowd. Aristotle would look at you and then he would ask, why trade the one thing you can master, your own virtue, for something as unstable as the applause of others? If status is only a shadow, then why does it grip you so tightly? Why is it that even when you understand its emptiness, you still cannot stop chasing it? Aristotle believed the answer begins with human nature itself. Man, he wrote, is a zoon politikon, a political animal, which means your life is never fully private. You are born into communities shaped by families, schools, tribes, nations, and within those communities, survival has always depended on recognition. In the earliest tribes, to be ignored was to be at risk. The man without standing was the man without allies. Respect meant protection. Status meant safety. This instinct is buried deep inside you, and though the dangers of the tribe have faded, the programming has not. Your brain still treats recognition as survival. This is why the desire feels so automatic. From childhood, you were trained through a system of reward and shame. Teachers praised you when you followed the rules, punished you when you broke them. Parents smiled when you achieved, frowned when you failed. Coaches lifted up the winners, ignored the bench warmers. Slowly, the lesson hardened. Worth is not what you are. Worth is what others reflect back to you. Psychologists call this habituation, the slow shaping of character through repeated practice. Aristotle saw it long before psychology existed. He knew that habits, once formed, grip tighter than reason. You may know that chasing applause is hollow, yet the habit still pulls you toward it. Modern life only accelerates this. In the past, recognition came in rare moments, an award at school, a promotion at work. Now, social media offers an endless stream of micro-rewards. Every like, every comment, every follower count releases a burst of dopamine in your brain. You tell yourself you are checking your phone for news or connection. In truth, you are scanning for proof that you still matter. Here is the cruel part. The system knows this. Corporations, platforms, institutions, they design the signals to keep you hooked. The more you chase, the more you depend. And the more dependent you become, the easier you are to control. Aristotle would have recognized the pattern instantly. You are not addicted to the device in your hand. You are addicted to the feeling of being acknowledged. You are not addicted to the screen. You are addicted to the mirror it holds up to your worth. And until you see this clearly, you will keep running in circles, hungry, restless, never satisfied. The confusion begins when you mistake the signs for the destination. Aristotle saw that most people believe happiness comes from one of three sources. Some chase pleasure, the life of comfort and indulgence. Others chase honor, the life of recognition and status. And a few seek contemplation and virtue, the life aligned with reason, discipline, and the pursuit of excellence. At first glance, honor looks like the noblest choice. To be respected by others, to be admired, to stand above the crowd. It feels higher than chasing food, drink, or fleeting pleasure. But Aristotle warned that honor is still not the final good. Why? Because it depends on others. Its value rests in their opinion, not in your action. This is the dangerous confusion. You think that if people respect you, you will finally be secure. But the respect fades. The applause quiets. The title loses its shine. And when it does, you are forced back into the chase. More recognition, more validation, more proof. Happiness, eudaimonia, cannot be built this way, because happiness must be rooted in activities that are good in themselves, not in signals borrowed from the crowd. Virtue, courage, wisdom, these do not vanish when the lights go out, but honor does. Look around. How many stories have you seen of the man who finally reached the top, only to collapse under the weight of it? The actor who wins the award then falls into depression. The CEO who retires with wealth, but cannot stand to be forgotten. The athlete who cannot leave the field because outside the stadium, he feels invisible. They had status, they lacked happiness. And this is Aristotle's point. The more you confuse honor with flourishing, the more restless you become. Because every victory is temporary. Every recognition demands another, and the cycle never ends. You think you are climbing toward fulfillment, but in reality, you are pacing inside a prison built from the eyes of others. The damage does not stop with your own restlessness. It spreads into your relationships. Aristotle wrote that there are three kinds of friendship. Friendships of utility, where people connect for mutual benefit. Friendships of pleasure, where people bond over enjoyment. And friendships of virtue, the highest form, where two people recognize and support the best in each other. But when your life revolves around status, true friendship becomes nearly impossible. You no longer see people for who they are. You see them as steps on a ladder, allies, rivals, assets, threats. Every interaction is measured by what it does for your image. Think of the businessman who only attends dinners that advance his career, the influencer who surrounds herself with those who boost her visibility, the executive who drops old friends the moment they no longer signal prestige. On the surface, these lives look full. Parties, connections, networks, but look closer and you see the truth. Transactions everywhere, authenticity nowhere. And this is why the man obsessed with recognition is often the loneliest of all. Surrounded, but unseen. Acclaimed, but not known. Because when your worth is tied to status, no one relates to you directly. They relate to the mask you are wearing. Aristotle understood this cost. Friendship of virtue cannot exist in a mind consumed by honor, because virtue looks inward while honor looks outward. Virtue builds substance, honor borrows appearance, and the two pull in opposite directions. The result is isolation. You may rise in the eyes of the crowd, but in the quiet moments, you realize no one truly sees you. Aristotle had a name for this obsession. He called it philotimia, the love of honor, the craving for recognition. To him, it was not always a vice. A measured desire for honor could motivate noble action, but when it grew unchecked, it became a sickness of the soul. And look around. Modern culture has perfected this sickness. We live in an age where appearance outweighs substance, where the spotlight is treated as proof of value. The man who builds quietly is overlooked. The man who performs loudly is celebrated. The result is a society addicted to performance, not excellence. Aristotle contrasted two types of men: the magnanimous man, megalopsychia, or greatness of soul, who knows his worth but does not beg for recognition. He stands tall, but he does not chase applause. Honor comes to him because it reflects his virtue. And then there is the vain man, who has little substance but cannot stop demanding praise. He bends his entire life toward being seen, even when there is nothing behind the image. Which type does society reward today? Look at the influencers who burn bright for a season, then vanish. Look at the executives who inflate their titles but hollow out their companies. Look at the politicians who master sound bites but fail to govern. They win attention, but they lose everything deeper. Here is the bitter irony. The more a culture glorifies recognition, the less it produces people truly worthy of it. Because when every incentive is built around being visible, no one invests in becoming substantial. The shadow grows larger while the body beneath it shrinks. Aristotle would warn us that this is the surest path to fragility. A man addicted to honor cannot stand when it is taken away. A society addicted to honor cannot endure when the spotlight shifts. Both become brittle, anxious, desperate to be seen. The magnanimous man, by contrast, is untouchable, because his worth is not borrowed. It is lived. He does not run after the spotlight runs after him. This is the cure Aristotle hinted at, even in the midst of describing the disease. But to see it clearly, we must step back and understand how status does not just poison individuals, it reshapes entire systems. The sickness of honor does not stay inside individual hearts. It scales upward until it shapes entire cultures. Aristotle saw this even in Athens. He watched politicians play not to the truth, but to the crowd. He saw public debates where the best ideas were ignored while the most flattering voices were rewarded. And he understood that when status becomes the currency, the system itself bends around it. Look at politics today. Leaders rise not because they are the most capable, but because they master the theater of recognition. They craft images, stage performances, sell familiarity, and the crowd rewards them, not for substance, but for the comfort of being mirrored back to themselves. Look at economics. Luxury industries thrive because they do not sell utility, they sell status. A car does not simply move you from one place to another. It signals what tier you belong to. A watch does not just keep time, it tells a story about your worth. Consumption becomes less about need and more about appearance. Look at culture. The award industry feeds off this hunger, turning validation into a product to be distributed. Prizes, certifications, rankings, all serve as signals. They give the illusion of excellence while often hiding the lack of it. And people line up, desperate to be crowned, even when the crown is made of paper. This is what happens when status rules society. The public square becomes a stage, and everyone becomes an actor. Excellence is pushed to the margins. The loudest, not the wisest, commands attention. The most visible, not the most virtuous, sets the tone. Aristotle warned that a man enslaved to honor is not free. The same is true of a culture. A society addicted to recognition becomes fragile. It becomes easy to manipulate, easy to control, because its people cannot resist the promise of being seen. And so the cycle repeats. Leaders chase applause instead of truth. Companies chase image instead of value. Citizens chase appearances instead of substance. The result is not progress, but a collective dependence on signals that never satisfy. Aristotle put it plainly, the man who depends on honor is the slave of whoever grants it. The same is true for societies. When a culture ties its worth to recognition, it hands its freedom to those who control the spotlight. If honor enslaves you, what sets you free? Aristotle's answer was not to abandon society, nor to pretend recognition does not matter. His answer was to shift the foundation of your life from what others grant to what you cultivate yourself. The first step, he said, is phronesis, practical wisdom. It is the ability to see clearly what is within your control and what is not. You cannot control whether others admire you. You cannot dictate applause, titles, or promotions, but you can control the quality of your actions, the virtues you practice, the choices you repeat until they form your character. This is where Aristotle's second principle comes in, habituation. You do not become courageous by wishing to be. You become courageous by practicing courage. You do not become just by demanding recognition. You become just by acting with fairness again and again until it becomes second nature. Excellence is not a gift handed out. It is a habit built daily. And when you ground your worth in habits of virtue rather than signals of honor, something shifts. The applause may come or it may not. The spotlight may shine or it may fade. But your foundation remains, because what you are cannot be stripped away by opinion. Aristotle also pointed to the role of friendship, not friendships of utility, where people trade favors for recognition, not friendships of pleasure, which fade when enjoyment ends, but friendships of virtue, where two people see and nurture the best in one another. In such friendships, honor is not the goal, growth is, and this is why they endure. What does this cure look like today? It means refusing to measure yourself by empty trophies. It means stepping back from the constant search for likes and choosing instead the quiet work of building skill, discipline, substance. It means letting honor be the shadow, not the master. Aristotle's medicine is not glamorous. It will not make you viral, but it will make you free. Because once your life rests on virtue, you no longer beg others to confirm your worth. You live it. And that kind of freedom cannot be taken away. Status promises security, but it delivers chains. It promises belonging, but it breeds dependence. It promises fulfillment, but it leaves you restless. The cost of this addiction is written everywhere. The man who rises to the top but cannot sleep without fearing the fall. The woman who wins admiration but feels hollow once the applause fades. The society that chases recognition so fiercely it forgets how to produce real excellence. All of them live in the shadow of status, and shadows, no matter how large, cannot feed the soul. Aristotle offered another path. He knew that honor follows virtue the way a shadow follows the body. When you stand in the light of your own excellence, recognition may appear behind you. But if you turn and chase the shadow, you will never catch it. You will run yourself into exhaustion, and the shadow will always dance, just out of reach. True freedom begins when you stop building your worth on what others can grant or take away. It begins when you live in accordance with your highest faculties: reason, courage, justice, discipline. These are yours. No vote of the crowd can erase them. No scandal, no trend, no shifting opinion can take them. They are carved into the habits you practice daily. And this freedom is not empty. It fills life with a kind of richness that status can never offer. Friendships built on virtue instead of utility. Work pursued for excellence instead of applause. a soul that can stand quietly without needing to be constantly seen. But here is the question you cannot avoid. Do you want to keep living as a shadow, chasing the light of others' approval, always hungry, always restless? Or do you want to become the flame, the kind of person whose substance is so undeniable that recognition, when it comes, is only a byproduct? The choice is not abstract. It begins with one simple act. Refuse a hollow reward. Resist the urge to post for validation. Decline the applause you do not need. And in that moment, you will feel a small spark of freedom. Build on it. Let it grow. That is how habits form. That is how virtue is lived. Aristotle's question still stands today. Do you want to be the man who borrows worth from the eyes of others, or the man whose worth is unshakable because it is rooted in himself? The shadow or the substance, the applause or the virtue, the addiction or the freedom? The answer is yours. If this spoke to you, leave a like and a comment so ThinkMate knows we are truly making a difference.